you.
Thank you. Nesta?
Thank you, Chair. This report is to cover a draft statement of licensing policy which is attached to the committee item. The council has to revise its policy every 5 years, and this has to be reviewed and implemented by the 25th of November 2020. Members are asked to make any comment on the policy prior to potentially sending this out for public consultation. Section 3.3 of the report details the amendments that have been made from the previous version. So those include amended timescales, changes to the cumulative impact assessment, changes to temporary event notices, updated standard conditions, updates to reflect corporate enforcement policy, update ages for the challenge 21 to challenge 25, updated contact details, and some typographical amendments. So members are being asked to make any comments on the policy and agreed that a 6-week consultation period can commence. The outcome from the consultation will be presented to your committee at October's meeting, and then this policy will progress to council on the 18th of November. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Okay, any questions for Nesta?
I move we accept it.
Okay, so if there's no questions for Nesta, we're asked, the recommendation is that members make any comments on the draft statement of licensing policy prior to it being issued for public consultation. Are you moving that recommendation, Councillor Horton?
I am.
Okay, seconded.
I'll second that one.
Thank you.
I'll second that one.
Is that Councillor Cooper?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to item 7, which appears at page 83. And that's the Business and Planning Act 2020. Is that you again, Nesta?
Yeah, I'll happily go through that, and then Matt can answer any questions or between we can do. So the Business and Planning Act 2020 received royal assent on the 22nd of July 2020, and there are 2 elements of this act which are relevant to this committee, being payment licences and changes to alcohol on sales. The Act is designed to help premises, including public houses, cafes, bars, restaurants, snack bars, coffee shops and ice cream parlours, to survive and bounce back from the pandemic lockdown and to assist with social requirements. So in respect of pavement licences, these are designed to make it easier for premises to seat and serve customers outdoors through temporary changes to planning procedures and alcohol licensing by allowing tables and chairs outside of the premises. The alcohol licence changes allow operators with existing on sales to also serve alcohol for consumption off the premises and make deliveries. No applications are required for this change. I'll move back to pavement licences, or to both the conditions, and both of them are temporary measures up to the 30th of September 2021 at the latest. In respect of pavement licences, there's a £100 cap to an application fee, and licences have a 10 working day or a 14-day determination period, and there is a requirement to consult the Highways Authority. The report says for 5 working days, however, the legislation states it's 7 days, but in essence, they work out at the same amount. Other agencies and publics can also comment on applications during the consultation period. In terms of determining these applications and dealing with any appeals, there's no formal set system detailed in the legislation. The monitoring officer confirms that this is already covered in the scheme of delegation to the officers within the Environmental Health Services. Members will be asked in their decisions to confirm this approach. Standard conditions are proposed within the report to be attached to any licences granted. In addition, there are 2 conditions detailed within the legislation, and those are of no obstruction and smoke-free seating, which have to be applied to all. I think what I'd like to do is take you to the report. Excuse me, I'll just move down slightly. And some of the recommendations that we're actually asking members to consider today. So members are asked, in terms of pavement licences, to agree the standard duration to be granted for pavement licences to be for 1 year or to expire on the 30th of September 2020, whichever is the soonest. Members were also asked to waive the fee for granting of a pavement licence. Members are asked that they agree the enforcement to be undertaken is in accordance with the corporate enforcement policy. And members are asked to confirm that all licensing functions, powers and duties contained within the Business and Planning Act are delegated to the Executive Director of Operational Services. Members were also asked to agree and approve to adopt the proposed conditions, which I'll go through in one moment, as standard conditions for pavement licences issued by the Borough Council. Approval to publish these conditions as guidance for applicants and consult members of the public. For applicants, consultees and members of the public. On page 87, there's the proposed conditions, and they're numbered from 1 to 22. I'm happy to go through each of those, Chair, or if members have considered those, I'm happy to take any questions, whichever you prefer.
Okay, so as Nesta says, the proposed conditions are on page 87 through to page 89, and there are 22 of them. Have all members had the opportunity to read those? Yeah, I'm getting lots of nods on the screen, Nesta, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
They were sent out, Jeff sent them out over a week ago.
Yeah, okay, so are there any questions then for Nesta? And just before probably I open up for questions, Matt, I know there's some representation or observation on the proposals from the police, if you want to make members aware of that.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The Chief Inspector, who covers the neighbourhood for Newcastle, has just made a couple of comments. He was hoping to attend tonight, but he hasn't been able to, so he sent an email through. His comments really were that he was happy with condition number 12, which relates to there being a final time and end time of 11 o'clock for pavement licences. And that he was also...
So he was broadly in agreement.
He was broadly in agreement, providing that that was standard across the board for all premises and didn't it wasn't extended for some of the later night premises. And his second comment was in relation to sort of the glassware. Now we've proposed a condition, which is condition number 14, where there won't be any glassware allowed or permitted in pavement area, licensed areas after 8 p.m. So broadly speaking, he was happy to he was happy with the consideration that we'd given in terms of the proposed conditions. Thank you.
Yeah. Could I ask Nesta to just go through them very quickly? The 1 to 22. I don't mean to go into a full detail, but give me an idea what they are, the points, please.
Nesta?
Just checking I wasn't still on mute. Yes, in terms of them, the first one is in relation to exclusive rights of use of the public highway and liability. Condition 2 is in relation to that the license can only be for the period stated upon the license and for the placement of counters, stalls, shelves, umbrellas, barriers, tables, chairs and benches, and for the sole purpose of consumption of food or drink. Condition 3 that it needs to be sited immediately in front of or to the side of the licence holder's existing business. Condition 4 is about public liability insurance. Condition 5 is in respect of any proposed changes to the pavement licence, that they be notified in writing 7 days prior to the change. Number 6 is a copy of the plan of the licence, and the plan must be displayed. Condition 7 is about obstruction, basically, and clear routes of access, in particular keeping a 2-metre width of unobstructed pedestrian pathways amongst the area. Condition 8 is about the positioning of furniture and barriers, must not prevent access by pedestrians or vehicles or bus stops, taxi ramps and other street furniture. 9 is about the furniture and fittings regularly cleaned and sanitised in accordance with COVID-19 guidance and repaired in a good state or kept in a good state to repair. Condition 10 is about demarcation barriers to be 800 millimetres high. Condition 11 is about space heaters and the guarding of them, that there shouldn't be any barbecues or fire pits or naked flames. Condition 12 is that the permitted time for use of the area must cease by 2300 hours or earlier, as earlier or later time as specified in the individual licence, and that all furniture and fittings must be removed. Condition 13 is about the provision of litter bins. Condition 14 is what Matt's just mentioned about no glassware or drinking or glass drinking vessels to be used after 2000 hours. Condition 15 is that the licence holder's responsibility for all the furniture, and they can't make a claim against the council should they be lost, stolen or damaged. Condition 16, that there should be a business risk assessment for COVID-19 transmission in place. Condition 17 is the risk assessment should consider any necessary controls to prevent antisocial behaviour or public nuisance. Condition 18 is no alcohol is to be consumed within the licence area, except in compliance with authorised business premises under the Licensing Act. Condition 19, all customers must be seated with no virtual drinking. Condition 20, no amplified music or sports commentary. 21, it's the area should be regularly checked for spills, food, drink, thoroughly cleaned, and everything removed at the end of trading. And 22 is the licence holder is responsible for actively managing the queues outside of their premises.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nesta.
Thank you, Nesta. Any questions for Nesta or Matt?
Councillor Sweeney's got his hand up.
Councillor Sweeney?
Yeah, thank you. It's not a question, really. It's a comment. I think this is an excellent. Anything we can do to help the publicans get back on and build on the nighttime economy as Newcastle is something I think that's to be welcomed, and the fact that we're prepared to waive the licensing fee as well is to credit to ourselves. So anything to help the nighttime economy at this trying time is the fact that police as well are happy with what we're doing and have made 2 perfectly sensible recommendations. I've got no problem with agreeing with. I absolutely support this completely. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
I second Councillor Sweeney's comments. Having been round most of the city centre pubs in the last few weeks, a lot of them are quite desperate for the extra trade. So I still think some of the pubs won't be reopening. So ones that haven't opened by now won't be reopening. So we'll have lost those businesses, which is a great shame.
Thank you. Councillor White?
Thank you, Chair. No, I just really want to reiterate what both of the councillors have done. So I think this is exactly the right thing to do. We need to support the local economy. I think it's great that we're waiving the fee, and I move this to an acceptance, please.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? No. So I think we got a proposal by Councillor Sweeney and seconded first of all by Councillor Hutton and lastly by Councillor White. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Okay, moving on to part 3 of tonight's agenda. Item 8, declarations of interest in relation to public protection matters. Anybody wish to declare any interest in relation to public protection matters? No, thank you. So in that case, that takes us to item 9 on the agenda, which is Dog Control's Public Space Protection Orders Review, and that's on pages 91 to 94. And we have David Beardmore here to present that to us. Over to you, David.
Good evening, members. It's a pleasure to talk to people about something other than COVID-19. So bear with me if I'm a little over enthusiastic with this. This is a request for members to approve a public consultation exercise. The purpose of the exercise is to establish if our residents still support these controls. The controls that we have in place now have been in place for a period of 3 years. They themselves had previous controls that were very similar. So this regime hasn't changed since around about 2013. But current legislation requires that we look at this on their every 3 years on their anniversary to ensure that they're still essentially fit for purpose. And so members are requested to approve a public consultation to establish if there's still support for these. The consultation would start pretty much immediately after this approval is given. Our intention is to run that consultation for a period of 6 weeks. That means that we would be able to bring back to members a report for the September meeting. And that report will indicate, well, essentially the views of our residents as to whether or not they think that we should continue to have controls in respect of things like dog fouling, areas where dogs should be excluded, areas where dogs need to be on leads. Obviously, we will bring back a full and frank report on what our residents feel about our current controls, if there are any changes that they would wish to see. And at that point, members would have an option to either extend the current orders that are in place for a further 3 years, to vary those orders, which is to come up with some alternatives or to tweak them in accordance with what our residents and other stakeholders wish, or to discharge those orders. So in other words, bring them to an end and say that we no longer wish to have any controls in place in relation of dog fouling, requirements for dogs to be on leads in certain locations, or limits on where dogs can be. There isn't a lot more that I can tell you. I'm happy to take questions about the.
I move we go ahead with the consultation.
Yeah, I think just David, for absolute clarity, really, what we're saying is that we're asking members' approval to go out to consultation on the status quo.
Absolutely. We think that, well, the feedback that we have at this stage is that our residents are happy with the controls that have been in place for the last 3 years. We have tweaked them various times since 2013, but at this point, I believe that they're a comprehensive set of controls, and that the needs of the borough haven't changed dramatically in the last 3 years. But until we've actually formally asked our residents what they think, I can't be confident, so I can't recommend to you at this point to extend. I need to have your consent to
consult.
To consult, please.
Okay, so noted, Councillor Horton, that you've moved the recommendation, but just need to ask: is there any other questions for David before we move on from any members? Okay, so the recommendation is to approve a 6-week consultation period and agree to receive a future report summarising feedback and recommending whether orders should be extended, varied or discharged. That's been proposed by Councillor Hutton, seconded by Councillor Gary White. All those in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay. Moving on then to item 10, which is on pages 95 to 98 of your agenda, and that's scheme updates. A, town centre Hackney carriage marshalling, and B, use of the bus station for private hire vehicles. And David, that's you again. Thank you.
And again, this is a report that's been quite a long time in the drafting. It's really basically to update members on a current position. It's an evolving position, but it's where we are at a point in time, and to seek those recommendations. Recommendations here is that the council has no further involvement in rank marshalling, and I'll explain in a moment or two the reason for that. And secondly, that the Executive Director of Commercial Development and Economic Growth is given approval to look at how the bus station could be used in the future. That may be to continue it exactly as it is now, or it could be to do this in a slightly different way. So given those two particular things, I'll move through them in each of their elements. In respect of marshalling, we had a scheme that came into effect around about 10 years ago. It really was a result of where the town centre was at that point in time, that a lot of public houses were all closing the doors at a set time, and there was a stampede. There was a need to get as many people out of the town centre in a very short period of time as we possibly could to address issues of antisocial behaviour and basically to get people home. The council came up with two particular measures in order to do that. One was a marshalling scheme that enabled the existing rank space to be extended. It gave it an extra 25 places where cars could be within the town centre to pick up that's Hackney vehicles to pick up and take fare-paying passengers home. It also meant that private hire vehicles that can't stand on a Hackney carriage rank had a location within the ring road where people could safely get to them. They didn't need to cross the ring road. They were in a well-lit, open area, an area where the police could easily supervise large numbers of people if they were congregating, waiting for a private hire vehicle to take them home. Mentioned that things have evolved. There's been extra work with Staffordshire County Council to look at rank provision within the town centre and requests from Staffordshire Police to close parts of Hassel Street at certain times, which means that the current rank marshalling arrangement from the Hackney Carriage Association won't be needed in the future, and indeed it has actually ceased at the moment. It isn't a scheme that's been run by the council. We've had a number of approaches recently from other drivers asking about whether or not the council should step in, whether the council can require a payment by Hackney drivers to use a marshalling scheme. And I think the answers that we've given are bullet pointed there at 1.5 in the report. That said, I think I've mentioned the scheme is not currently operating, and we have no plans in the future to return to a point where the council has an involvement in that. There's a number of solid reasons for that are explained further in the report. Second element of this is about the bus station. And again, when the scheme started 10 years ago, there were actually 10 operators that were actively using the bus station. It was worth the police being there because of the numbers of people that were there in a relatively short time frame who all needed to get home. Bus station is used by a single operator now. The numbers of people are much reduced, and the time that those people are there varies considerably, so that there is less of a crowd, less of a rush. And that therefore in terms of policing means that actually having an officer deployed within the bus station area to supervise that just doesn't make good use of police time. Again, the report therefore asks that the Executive Director of Commercial Development looks again at whether or not the use of the bus station in this way is the right thing to do. 10 years on, it's appropriate that we reflect on what drivers need, what our town centre patrons need, and what is the best thing for the authority to do to make the best use of its assets. So again, the recommendations are outlined there. ask members to consider the report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, David. Councillor Houghton, you've indicated you'd like to speak.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Mr. Beardmore, you said there's only one operator using the bus station, but D&G use the bus station and First Group use the bus station. So
Yeah,
that's two
I think
operators.
it's taxi operated.
My apologies if I've misled you. The scheme that we're talking about is the use of the bus station essentially out of hours. The buses run until 9 or 10 p.m. in an evening, and there is a very regimented system for buses to use the bus station. They pay what's called a departure fee. So essentially, for each service that uses it, the council receives a sum of revenue for the usage of the bus service. What happens after that, so once the last bus is gone, is that's essentially a piece of unused tarmac. And in the past, it's been very sensible to use that piece of tarmac to bring private hire vehicles in off the ring road to a place where members of the public could book those vehicles through a booking agent that the operator provided and get into those vehicles. So when I refer to one operator, one person using the bus station, it's a single private hire operator, not 10 competing private hire operators as it was 10 years ago.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Hutton, yeah. Any questions for David? No. The recommendations then are.
Mark, can I just ask David?
Sorry, Julie, I didn't see you. Not on my screen.
On time. Right, David, I was involved with the first round of getting the taxis onto the bus station in the first place. I thought we got the marshals there where they were marshalling themselves, not a police officer. That's what I was under the impression, that the taxi drivers were marshalling themselves.
The scheme 10 years ago, forgive me, if you were there, you'll remember some of this probably better than I do, but the scheme from 10 years ago was very democratically arranged. The operators came together, they agreed to pay a levy. The levy that those operators then paid enabled the local authority to arrange some essentially public safety supervision of that. Each of the operators provided their own booking clerk. So if there was a member of the public that attended the bus station wishing to get into a private hire vehicle, the booking clerk provided by the private hire operator would take their details, pass that through to the base so that the booking was properly made, and then beckon forward a car from their fleet for that passenger to get into. But there was a levy that operators, indeed drivers, paid for the use of that scheme, which was imposed across quite a number of drivers. And as time has moved on, as fewer drivers, fewer operators are using that the bus station in that way, it gives us some choices that we need to make now about how we generate an income from this and how we would correctly spend that money supervising and ensuring public safety.
Okay. So, okay, Julie.
Well, is it so the fact that they've still got to phone in to the taxi company and to book the taxi instead of just going to, or do they have to just go to the rank now?
The current, well, there are two different types of vehicle, as I'm sure you're well aware, that there are Hackney carriages which can stand on a rank and can be flagged down. You can just walk to a Hackney carriage and get into one. Private hire is slightly different. That has to be a booking that has to be made through the operator's base station. And so what happens is that the one operator that is currently using the bus station has their own booking clerk that's on site. The patron walks to that booking clerk, explains that they want to take a taxi, they'll give the name, they'll give the destination, and that booking clerk will then radio that through or phone that through to the base so that the journey is correctly booked. That enables private hires to work a little bit like Hackney, which 10 years ago was very, very important because there was a much smaller number of Hackney vehicles than there is now. It's a market forces thing. There are fewer private hire operators wishing to use the bus station, in part because there are more Hackney vehicles that are available on the ranks across the town centre.
Thank you very much. That's a bit more. That's more. Thank you. Up to date. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any more questions for David? No. So the recommendations are that members agree the council has no further involvement with the Newcastle and Kidsgrove Hackney Association rank marshalling scheme. And secondly, the Executive Director, Commercial Development and Economic Growth, be given approval to review the use of the bus station site and to set new conditions for its future nighttime use by private hire operators, including charges if appropriate. Somebody wish to move that? Councillor Hutton?
Thank you.
Thank you. Seconded, anybody?
I'm happy to second.
And seconded by Councillor Redditch. So proposed by Councillor Hutton, seconded by Councillor Redditch. All those in favour of the recommendations? Thank you. That's carried. Thank you, David. So moving to item 11, which is Environmental Act 1995, Part 4, Local Air Quality Management, Annual Status Report 2020, and that's on pages 99 to 112. It's a report that comes to us every year in its updated format. And I think, Nesta, you'll be just taking us through the key elements of that.
Yes, Chair, thank you very much. So, as Mark's just said, this report details the annual status report, which is the statutory report that we're required to submit to government each year in terms of our air quality findings. And this report covers the calendar year of 2019 and provides an update on the main pollutants of concern, which are nitrogen dioxide principally, and that pollutant is principally created by vehicles. So air quality monitoring has been carried out since 1997. The legal limit for nitrogen dioxide is 40 micrograms per cubic metre as taken as an annual average level. In 2019, diffusion tube data has not identified any locations outside the existing air quality management areas where nitrogen dioxide levels were exceeded. In terms of trends, there's been a general decrease in nitrogen dioxide levels during 2019, with the majority of areas now being below that objective level or that legal level. The report goes through a summary of the 4 air quality management areas where there have been some exceedances, although not in all of them. So I'll take those in turn. So the first of those is the town area. And you'll see that there is a map at the end of the report of each of these areas to show where the actual air quality management area is. So air quality in this particular area is influenced by traffic using the major arterial routes which convene on the town centre. Alongside the congestion and a mixed vehicle fleet creates the NO2 levels. There are 4 monitoring locations on London Road, King Street, Lower Street, and a further location on King Street, which exceed the 40 micrograms per cubic metre annual average. When you compare the results since 2012, it does show a decreasing trend against these levels. However, those are exceedances against the legal objective level. The second air quality management area is in Kidsgrove, and air quality within this area is influenced by traffic using the A50 and the local road network. The results in 2019 show no exceedances of nitrogen dioxide. The third air quality management area that we've declared is the Maybank, Wolstanton and Port Hill. Again, this is influenced by traffic using the junctions on the A500, and particularly within that area, there's a single carriageway with traffic signals, bus stops, parking, and all of those impede the traffic flow. Again, there were no exceedances in 2019, but there was an increase at some of the monitoring sites when compared to the 2018 monitored levels. The final air quality management area that we have is at Little Madeley. It's purely a single property, and that's influenced by traffic along the M6. And again, there haven't been any exceedances at that site, but we have determined that we ought to continue monitoring that just in case the managed motorways become live in between junctions 15 and 16 and the actual main carriageway moves closer to the property. That could alter the air quality at that particular property. So the conclusions for the report is that the air quality management areas ought to remain and continue monitoring it within 2020. And the actions that are detailed in 2.11 of the report should continue. So members are asked to receive the report, and I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Okay, so it's just before I hand over for questions. Overall, it's quite a good progress, isn't it?
Overall, yes, it is showing a decreasing trend. Obviously, there's some national initiatives that help with that. Vehicle fleet renewals, obviously, a lot of people are changing their travel habits, and so all those things are helping to improve the, certainly the cleaner technology in terms of vehicles. When people renew their vehicles, are the main ones. So there is a national decreasing trend. Obviously, in terms of exceedances, we do have just those key areas within the town centre where there are the current exceedances. But generally, yes, it's a relatively good picture.
You're frozen, Mark.
Mark, you're frozen.
Thank you, Nestor.
Thanks.
You've thawed out now.
While Mark's frozen, does anybody else have any questions?
Nestor?
Yeah.
Nestor? There will be a vast difference this year because of COVID. So down Portal Bank, there's going to be a vast in between what we've actually got. So we're going to be starting from a clean slate, really, as everything's just about all gone back down now because of the traffic's not as bad as it used to be. And then we had the 3 months where there was hardly any traffic. So yeah, we'll have to see. We can actually got a clean slate to see where we go from as of this point now, as it'll be our new starting point.
Yeah, obviously COVID has had huge impacts for a period of time in terms of traffic level. And yes, that will impact on air quality. There have been some reductions. However, government are anticipating that traffic will resume or go back to a near pre-COVID level. And certainly I'm aware that because of other air quality projects that I'm involved in, that, we have done some monitoring of traffic levels, and across the country, they are nearly returning back to normal. So yes, Julie, there will be a reduction for when we report for next year. And I think the key is how we can make that a sustained reduction in terms of traffic. And, when people are changing, is the possibility that people will continue to cycle more, they'll continue to walk more, or will more people just turn to their car?
Especially when we get around to doing electric cars as well. So there should be a bit more of an improvement.
Yeah, certainly in terms of the national initiatives and equally locally, all those vehicle fleet renewals, certainly, the newer a vehicle is, it has a Euro engine type, and certainly when it gets newer, it has a cleaner vehicle. So those will come on, and certainly when there's more hybrids and more electric vehicles, that will improve generally altogether, in terms of the pollution levels.
Thank you.
I think I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I don't know what happened then. So, any questions? Any further questions? Councillor Sweeney.
Yeah, thank you. I'll put my little hand up thing as well somewhere, Marky. Yeah, a couple of things, Nestor. These is 2019, isn't it? So is that the calendar year 2019?
It is, yes.
It is, right. When we put double lines on the A34 opposite the Catholic Church, one of the points of doing that was to try to improve the traffic flow and reduce the sort of NO2. I can't really follow this. Has it reduced anything or not? Does this say on here or not?
In terms of that particular one, you'll have to leave it with me. London Road is where you're talking about, isn't it? There is
up to about A34, going up to the Grosvenor roundabout by the Catholic Church.
Yeah, that's actually, I think it's London Road. So it's still an exceedance. So you'll just have to bear with me if you want me to just go through the report and actually find that particular bit.
Right. Is it on this report, Nesta? Or not?
It should be. I think it is on there. Just bear with me because it's in the town area.
I think it's 2.6.4.
Yeah. I think that shows in terms of London Road, it's 41.2 in 2019, and what you're after is the figure in 2018.
I certainly am, yeah.
It is, and I'm afraid that isn't specifically in the report, but I can most probably get it for you before the end of the meeting, if you would like.
Yeah, that'd be well. I don't put yourself out, Nesta. If you could let me know sometime, it'd be interesting to know if the yellow lines have worked. That was all.
Okay.
Was that one of the reasons to them going in? That was. Okay, thank you.
Can that be Chair, could that be circulated to everybody? Because that's of interest, I'm sure, to all members of this subcommittee, or this reduced committee, sorry, not subcommittee. Because if double yellow lines make a difference to traffic flow and pollution, then obviously there will be considerations to use them elsewhere.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Is that okay, Nesta, to circulate that?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay. Any more questions for? I can't see any hands up on the list. Okay, so moving to the recommendation is that we receive the report. Are we happy to receive the report?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So moving on then to item 12. Urgent business. I've not been informed of any urgent business this evening. So it just leaves me to, well, first of all, apologise for